The Borderline Justice Warbond is here, and this is a Cowboy Themed Warbond that offers you an assortment of new gameplay items, as well as a Wild West experience throughout the galaxy. Yeehaw! But this all begs the question, which of these items are the best and which are the worst? But also, is this Warbond even worth getting? Well, howdy there. Dr. Pooplove here, and I reckon that's what I'd like to find out. In this video, I will be ranking each of the Borderline Justice weapons on a tier list, with S being the best and Poop Hater being the worst. But not just one tier list, 3 tier lists, because the usefulness of these items are going to vary depending on whether you are facing off against the Terminids, the Automatons, or the Illuminate. And finally, at the end, we will answer the question, where does the Borderline Justice Warbond rank as a whole? Starting off with the R6 Deadeye Marksman Rifle, which is a lever action marksman rifle with medium armor penetration, a good bit of damage, and stagger, as well as rounds reload. This actually does the most damage out of all the marksman rifles, and in many respects, this is sort of a Constitution variant, only with much better stats, making the Constitution seem like even more of a meme. And for the bugs, well, I gotta be honest, this is not so great. That's a little bit to be expected though, as marksman rifles with their slower fire rates tend to struggle on this front. This thing dishes out real good damage and stagger on this front, but just requires a lot of individual targeting, which can cause you to struggle as the horde starts coming around you. Although this can do some collateral, and that can be nice. Overall, this is a bit of a struggle to take out versus the bugs, but it does at least feel like a clear step up from the Constitution, so I will give it a C for the bugs. Now, for the bots, this is actually quite a bit better. The accuracy, the damage, and the medium armor penetration means that this is actually going to do well versus most things on this front. This can one-shot Devastators in the head, and it can also take out Striders fast. It even has some good stagger to it, which is especially great versus that freaking Incineration Core with their freaking cookouts. And that can be a solid reason to opt for this, especially over the Diligence Counter Sniper, which doesn't really have stagger. I do kind of wish that this was heavy armor penetrating though. Like the fact that the Eruptor now has that buff definitely kind of takes the wind a little bit out of the sails on this thing. It's still nice. It's still a solid pick for the bots. I will give it an A. Now for the squids, this has some pros and cons. The best aspect of this is its ability to take Overseers out with a single headshot. While not amazing for the Voteless Horde, this does one-shot them and do some collateral as well. This seems like 2 shots to the Watchers, and actually it's not too bad for the Harvesters, firing fast enough to take their shields off and quickly taking down their shield generators, while also being fairly decent at getting them from the joints. I do like this, but I don't think it's earth-shatteringly good. I'll give it a B for the squids. Now though, for one of the coolest looking new guns, the LAZ-58 Talon, which is a laser revolver with infinite ammo, good medium armor damage, and a decent fire rate, and with a heatsink that recharges such that if you do time it right, you can continually fire this thing forever. Now versus the bugs, this can be pretty good. The medium armor penetration comes really in handy versus things like the Hive Guards and the Bile Spewers, but also the infinite ammo is very nice. And in many ways, this can feel amazing at being that perfect sidearm for you, because at any moment that you run out of your primary, you can switch to this for some strong backup shots, and you won't even need to worry about reloading it. On that note though, you do need to pay attention to the coil on this, as it does seem like 5 really quick shots is the limit, but it could be a little bit more if you fire a little bit slower. And although you can slow fire this thing endlessly, I actually prefer to shoot this in a few quick bursts, 2, 3, 4 shots at a time to clear some of the hardest targets. Overall, I do think this is very solid. I will give it an A for the bugs. Now for the bots, this is awesome as well. The medium armor penetration means that this is going to be effective versus most most things, and the higher damage means you can do things like one-shot a Devastator in the head. The infinite ammo, of course, is nice, and it even has some decent effectiveness on the heat sinks. On this front, I really do love this, but I don't think it quite hits the top tier with things like the Senator or the Loyalist, so I will give it an A for the bots. And for the squids, this is pretty solid as well, being a very good backup as you run from the Voteless Horde, and I like to do some quick bursts of this thing while running. This also 2-taps the Overseers in the head, although quick firing about 4 shots into them while staying under the heat limit can also wreck them pretty nicely. Now, although this can fire fast, it's not really going to be that great for any of the shields, and it actually really struggles even with the Gunslinger perk and reloading the coils. Overall, still very solid, just not the total top, and so I will give it an A for the squids. Now, the next one is going to make you go kaboom. And that is the TED 63 Dynamite, which releases a high damage and widespread explosion after a variable timer. And it can be timed for a release of 5 seconds, 15 seconds, or a whole minute? And versus the bugs, this does have some potential. The bigger explosive radius coupled with the high damage on this thing means that it can take out a good chunk of the horde, and can be kind of useful throwing at things like bug breaches. This also can be used for the normal bug holes as well as the bigger Bile Titan holes, which can be very nice. I do kind of wish this had like a sticky effect like the thermite grenade, so you could have it explode on some of the bigger targets, but it doesn't stick to them, and maybe that would be too much. I also don't really see much of a point of delaying the fuse past 5 seconds. 5 seconds really is enough to get out of the way of the wide explosion here, and I mean, I can maybe see some slight justification for 15 seconds, but I definitely don't really see a point to the 60-second timer. I might be missing something here. Maybe someone can point something out down in the comments, but I just don't really see the point unless maybe you're trying to create some sort of distraction far away from you. All in all, I think this is okay. I'll give it a B for the bugs. Now for the bots, I just really don't like this. The widespread explosion here can get to a clump of enemies, but it really doesn't feel that impactful. I also thought maybe this could take out a Fabricator from the outside, but it only really works if you throw it into the holes. The longer timer on this thing actually feels like a perfect thing to use for the convoys. Like you could lay a trap for them to arrive, but it's really not strong enough for the factory striders, so it's not worth it. And honestly, it just feels like a waste to take on this front. I will give it a poop hater category. And for the squids, this can be okay. The widespread explosion here can do good work for the horde, and it can destroy the spaceship, so that is good. But that's about it. I guess it can get a B for the squids. But next is the Gunslinger armor passive, and this actually gives you 3 perks, all aimed at your secondary. This will increase your reload speed, it will increase your draw speed, and it will also reduce your recoil by a lot. And for the bugs, this obviously is only going to help with your sidearm, and so because of this, you really want to have one that's actually going to benefit from this. Perhaps one of the stronger examples is the Redeemer, which does have the most recoil normally, but with this, it also shoots really straight, and that is nice. Or the Bushwhacker, which you do kind of have to reload a lot, and so being able to have a quick reload speed can help with that. This also greatly speeds up the reloading on the Ultimatum, which can be good, although you don't really have a ton of ammo, so I don't feel like you're reloading it that much. Generally, this is going to be good at beefing up some of your sidearms, but it's not going to be totally useful, and it really doesn't feel totally necessary, as your secondary is often not something that's used too much. I think for that, it might get a C for the bugs. For the bots, I think this can be much more decently helpful if you want to use the Senator. Although if you do like the Redeemer, this could also help with using that at range. For the Senator though, which even with that speed loader reloads kind of slow, this helps make it feel even more like a primary weapon for you. And so if you like to use that a lot, I can see a really good excuse to take this perk with you. That being said, it's It's not impacting that many of your secondary weapons, but at least the Senator is probably the best one to take on this front. I will give it a B for the bots. And for the squids, this certainly can help, but it's really just dependent on how much you really plan to use your sidearm and whether it actually will benefit much from this. I haven't really mentioned the draw speed too much because while definitely noticeable, it doesn't really seem to make a huge difference. And also a lot of secondaries don't really have a ton of recoil, so it doesn't benefit a ton from that either. For me, it just doesn't feel worth it on this front over other armor passives that are probably going to impact things you might utilize more. So I will give it a C for the squids. But now for something I absolutely love from this Warbond, the Lift 860 Hover Pack, which is a jump pack variant, kind of, essentially giving you a vertical lift and allowing you to hover for a time with some low mobility before descending safely. And for the bugs, I absolutely love this. The hover feature is great for escaping from a dicey situation, allowing you to go up into the sky and giving you a lot more room to breathe while being up there. And from the skies, it also gives yourself some time to take multiple different types of actions. You can fire upon your enemies, you can reload your weapons or charge them up, you can even key in and drop a stratagem. Now, also on this front, you can use the vertical height to get to otherwise unobtainable places in order to just keep safe generally from the bugs and have a good vantage point. I also like pairing this with things like the ultimatum or other explosive type weaponry, as it will give you a better angle and actually allows you to shoot a little bit further distance given your height. Now, be warned, in many respects, this doesn't give you enough vertical height to totally avoid explosions, so should you drop them right under you, you may get caught up in them. Now, while this won't give you as much ability to escape an area as the jump pack with its more horizontal momentum, this is still absolutely amazing, providing you some safety. It recharges pretty quickly, and in my opinion, it's actually more valuable on this front than the regular jump pack. So yes, this gets an S tier for the bugs. This is amazing. Now, for the bots, I actually am much less of a fan, but it still has some good features. The main downside here is flying high into the sky makes you pretty much a sitting duck, especially as you are less mobile here, and especially versus the freaking incineration core cookout guys. Still, this does have some advantages. It can help you get to good vantage points, and I like using this with the Quasar cannon, as you can charge it up from the air and actually get a good angle on the targets. This also can be helpful in allowing you to scale fortresses, so it does have some usefulness, but you will need to be a little bit more choosy and careful when using it. This is good, but it's just not as useful on this front. I'll give it a B for the bots. Now, for the squids, this is just amazing. Again, you can use this to escape the voteless horde very nicely, and the hover feature actually gives you a good chance to focus and play eye to eye with the elevated overseers and the watchers without needing to worry about the ground troops. And this can be great in the city, of course, being able to scale the tops of skyscrapers. This even can be good for buying you time during a dicey extraction. I really do love this, and so I will give this an S for the squids. But now for the sample Extricator, which grants you a chance for a sample to drop when killing a big enemy for the limit of 10 per mission. And by the way, this does seem like it's only going to be common samples. At least that's all I've been able to obtain, which is slightly disappointing because I wish it could kind of do rare as well. But it's not the worst thing in the world, given that common samples are often the ones I need to unlock my spaceship upgrades. Now, for this booster, I'm going to rate this the same for all three factions because essentially this is just going to help you extract more samples per mission regardless of which faction you choose. Now, for the normal missions, this is just okay. Certainly it's nice to be able to get more samples, but you will have to go back and traverse over the top of the big guys and look out for these. They don't really give you any indicators on the map, and so that can be kind of annoying, especially when the big guys disappear and you don't remember where you killed them. I think where this can actually be quite awesome is when used on defense missions on smaller maps. On these missions, you do get some common samples, but now you can actually get 10 10 more. And especially as these missions are shorter, this can be kind of a great way for farming these types of samples, especially as you do end up taking a lot of big guys out on these missions. Basically though, you do just need to not have your team get immediately on the Pelican and allow you to take some time to traverse the map first. This can be good for sure, it just has a few issues, and after you've unlocked all your spaceship upgrades, Arrowhead hasn't given a ton of good reasons to keep grinding for samples. I'll just give it a B for all 3 factions. But with all of this, where does the Borderline Justice Warbond land as a whole on my Premium Warbond tier list? Well, this does offer a lot of very strong and noteworthy items, and it's certainly cool from a theme perspective. Yeehaw! But ranking this purely on gameplay and based on which order I would get this if I needed to start again from scratch, I don't think this rises to the top. While great, this doesn't offer too much that is going to feel like a must-have, with the exception of maybe the Lift Hover Pack, which is just amazing. Arguably, the sample Extricator booster can be something you will want earlier on in your Helldiver journey to help with that sample grind, and I also think the Talon is a super solid secondary, serving as a perfect backup for you. Everything else I don't find to be that critical or overly useful, at least not over a lot of other things we already have in the game, and considering a lot of recent buffs that have impacted a lot of the other Warbonds here. So for that reason, I will give the Borderline Justice Warbond a high B. And so, here we have our lists. Here is where the Borderline Justice Warbond items rank versus the bugs, here is where they rank versus the bots, and here is where they rank versus the Illuminate. And here is where the Warbond as a whole ranks versus the other ones. But let me know what you think about all the items and about the Warbond itself. Let me know down in the comments below. Check out my Helldivers tier list playlist for more videos like these, and thank you to my YouTube members for joining the Bowel Movement. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.